back in retreat. His cheeks throbbed with pain, as though they had been scalded. Da hayu. How da hayu do his humi? His swollen, reddened cheeks hurt whenever he spoke. Is there a problem? Or kur her eye? Ihayat. Who o haya hinkayam? Just another moron. Sabas closed in on the retreating Stefan, and with a thwop, he dealt out yet another resounding slap. Hop eye. Plee hop eye. Stefan covered his face like a child being struck by his parents. He liked using violence, but he had always used it on those weaker than him. Even if Sabas appeared to be just another old man, Stefan would not dare raise his hand to him. He would only make his move when he was absolutely certain that his victim could not fight back. Perhaps he had sensed Stefan's craven nature, but Sabas lost interest in him and looked back to the girl. How tragic. Stefan ran past Sabas as he stood over the girl. You a Hyatt? Stefan fumed. What a foolish old man. He was going to gather everyone in this place to teach this old man a painful lesson. How dare he strike someone like himself? He would not go easy on the old man. Stefan would make sure he had his fill of pain and fear. The image of the butler's mistress, the angelic-seeming girl, appeared in Stefan's mind. The mistress would have to take responsibility for her servant's mistakes. He would have her bear the burden of the pain that the old man had caused him. Stefan would teach that old man exactly who he had hit. As those dark thoughts went through his mind, Stefan charged out the door as his beer belly jiggled violently. Home one. Home one, help me, he shouted. Surely an employee would come to check on him if he called for help. However, his hopes were dashed the moment he stepped into the hallway. The passage was silent. It was as though nobody was around. Stefan looked around nervously, still naked. The bizarre silence of the hallway filled him with fear. At a glance, there were several doors on both sides of him. It was only natural that nobody would answer him. This place catered to clients with exotic tastes, dangerous ones in fact. Thus the rooms were all soundproofed. However, there was no way the employees would not have heard. He had seen several of them when he had been brought to his room just now. Each of them was a burly man with bulging muscles. How could an old man like Sabas compare? YH hobo de homing. They are all either dead or unconscious, said the calm voice which answered Stefan's cry. Turning back, Stefan saw Sabas standing serenely behind him. There were apparently quite a few of them, though most of them are asleep now. The impoable. How wahay peeper do haya hink are her haiwahi. There were 3 who looked like employees on top and 10 more down below. There were 7 others like you. What nonsense are you babbling? Sabas looked incredulously at Sabas. In any case, nobody here, upstairs or downstairs, can save you. Even if the staff did wake up, I have already broken their arms and legs. All they can do is crawl like caterpillars. Stefan's expression was one of utter shock. Impossible, he thought, but the air within the brothel proved the truth of Sabas' words. All right, I do not think there is a need to spare your life. That being the case, please die here. Sabas did not draw a sword or ready any sort of weapon. He simply walked up to Stefan in silence, like it was the most natural thing in the world. That nonchalance only served to frighten Stefan, because he knew Sabas truly wanted him dead. Way. Ekengai haya hahado mana. I do not quite understand what you are saying. I believe you are attempting to offer me an inducement, am I correct? I see, not interested. Wahar haya doing thigh. What have I done to deserve this? Why do I have to die? Stefan finally got his message across to Sabas for the first time. Do you not know, even after searching your heart? Stefan considered everything he had done until now. What had he done wrong? Sabas sighed. Really now? As he said that, Sabas savagely kicked Stefan in the gut and sent him flying. So that is what they mean when they say that something is not worth keeping alive. Stefan was racked with incredible pain as several of his internal organs ruptured within him. The agony was such that a man might writhe and suffer until he died, but Stefan remained conscious, though his mind was a blur. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. He wanted to scream and roll around on the ground, but he was immobile from the intense pain. Rest in peace. Or not, as it were, a cold voice said to Stefan's soon-to-be corpse. Stefan wanted to cry out for help, but his throat would not respond. A drop of sweat trickled into his eye and his vision became blurry. Still, he could make out Seba's receding back. Save me. Please save me. I'll pay you anything you want, so please save me. Nobody could answer his silent plea for help. In the end, Stefan Havish suffered unimaginable pain in his abdomen as he slowly died. Part 2 Lower Fire Month, 9th month, 3rd day 12/12 Climecoin. We should kill everyone up here. I don't have anything to bind them with, and if they raise the alarm we'll be in trouble. Even if we knock them out, they might wake up. Under the circumstances, it's just too risky to try and subdue a location we don't know anything about. Is something wrong? No, it's nothing. Clym shook his head to chase away his uneasiness. His heart had pounded within his chest, but he tried his best to ignore it. Forgive me. I'm all right over here. Ready to go at any time. Really? Looks like you're a different person. You've been acting strange ever since we got here, but you've got a warrior's face on you now. I do understand how you feel, because there's a powerful enemy here that you can't beat at the moment. Still, don't worry. I'm here and so is Sabas-sama. Focus on staying alive to keep your spirits up. Brain patted Clym on the back, then knocked on the door 4 times with the hand that was not holding his sword. Clym clutched his weapon tightly as well. The sound of heavy footsteps came from behind the door. Then they heard the sound of locks disengaging, 3, to be precise. In the instant which the door opened, Clym pulled it wide open, in accordance to the plan. Brain had already slashed his way in before the people inside could even cry out in surprise. There was the sound of a body being cut apart, followed by that of a heavy object hitting the ground. Clym was a step behind Brain as he charged inside. He entered just in time to see Brain cut down his second man. There was one more person within the room, a man in leather armor and carrying a short sword. Clym rushed him and closed the distance in an instant. Who the hell are you? The man stabbed at Clym with his blade, but Clym easily deflected it with his sword. After that, Clym raised his sword high, and brought it down on the man from above. The man tried to block it with his dagger, but a mere short sword could not withstand a strike with Clym's full weight behind it. Clym's sword deflected the short sword away, and his blade sank into the man's shoulder, carving through his larynx. The man cried out in pain as he collapsed to the ground, and Clym could not believe the human body could contain that much blood. His opponent twitched and spasmed on the ground as he lay dying. After verifying the wound he had dealt was mortal, Clym rushed deeper into the room, riding the flow of the battle, while remaining alert. No enemies came out from hiding to meet him. He could hear Brain running up the stairs to the second floor behind him. The furniture here was plain and ordinary. Clym made sure there were no enemies here before moving on to the next room. A minute passed. Having checked their assigned floors and satisfied themselves that there were no other enemies, Clym and Brain met at the entrance. I went over the first floor, but I didn't see any enemies. Same with the second floor. They didn't even have beds there, so that means they don't live in this place. I'm sure of it, there has to be a secret passage leading to the place where they're staying. Did you find it? I'm pretty sure it's not on the 3rd floor. Nope, nothing like that. But if what you said is right, it ought to be on the 1st floor, Climecoin. Clym and Brain exchanged looks, and then looked inside the building. Clym had not learned any thief skills, so he could not detect secret doors just by looking. If there had been some flour here, and they had the time, they might be able to thoroughly scatter it around to find the hidden passage. The flour particles would fall into the seams of the secret doors, and make them easy to spot. However, they lacked both the flour and the time to scatter it. Therefore, Climb produced the magic items from his waist pouch. These were the handbells given to him by Gagarin of Blue Rose. She had said, "It's dangerous to adventure without a thief buddy, but you have to do it sometimes." In those situations, having an item like this can make a huge difference. Climb looked at the designs on each of the bells, and picked the one he needed from them. The magic item he selected was called the Bell of Detecting Secret Doors. Climb sensed Brain looking interestedly at the bell, and he shook it. The bell produced a pure note which only its holder could hear. In response to the bell, a corner of the ground glowed with a pulsing pale white light, telling him that there was a secret door there. "Oh, that's a handy magic item. Mine all enhance myself, they're only useful in battle." But any warrior would obviously choose such items, right? A warrior, huh? Climb left Brain, who was smiling sadly to himself. He memorized the position of the hidden door, and then he walked a circuit around the first floor. The effects of that magic item would only last for a short while, and he had to make the most of that time to search the area. However, after he had finished walking, no other place had reacted to the magic besides the place where he had started. After this, all they would have to do was open the secret door and pass through. However, Climb narrowed his eyes and looked at the door. Then he sighed and reached for the 3 bells again. This bell had different patterns on it from the previous one. He shook it like the one before. A similar, but different chime filled the air. This was the bell of removing traps. It paid to be cautious. As a warrior, Climb could neither find nor disarm traps, and there was nothing he could do against their effects. Perhaps if he had a magic caster with him, he might be able to recover from poison or paralysis, but he and Brain were only 2 warriors. There were apparently some martial arts which could delay the effects of poison, and the like for a while, but Climb had not learned them, and neither did he have any antidote potions on him. He had to consider being poisoned to be a fatal condition. This magic item had a limited number of uses per day, but it would be better to use them without hesitation than risk falling for a trap. A heavy clank came from the secret door. Climb wedged the tip of his sword into the gap between the secret door and the floor and pried it up. The wooden flooring went up and fell back in the other direction. There was a crossbow fitted inside the door, a bolt fitted to the knocked string. Under the light of the lamp, its head gleamed with a strange sheen that was not metallic in nature. Climb shifted position and examined the crossbow. There was a very sticky liquid on the quarrel's tip, most likely poison of some sort. If he had opened the secret door thoughtlessly, the poisoned projectile would have been loosed at him. Climb breathed a quiet sigh of relief and then checked to see if he could take down the crossbow. However, it was securely fitted and could not be removed without tools. Climb decided to abandon that notion and looked beyond the secret door. A staircase extended downwards, but he could not see down its length thanks to the angle of his observation. Said staircase was buttressed with stone blocks and looked very solid. Then, what should we do? Should we wait here? I'm not too good with fighting indoors. I'd rather find a wide, open space to wait for the enemy to show up. When it comes to one-on-one combat, you'd have a better chance waiting for the enemy at the top of the stairs. However, if you ended up fighting here, I might not be able to hear you once I went further in. Besides, enemy reinforcements might show up, so we shouldn't try to hold this place. In that case, let's go in together. Yes. Thank you. I'll take point. Hang back a bit before following me. Understood. By the way, the trap disarming item I used just now can be activated 3 times a day, but it can't be used consecutively. I have to wait half an hour between uses. So we can't count on it for the time being. Understood. I'll be careful as I go. Let me know if you find anything. With that, Brain descended the stairs and Climb followed with him. For safety's sake, Brain poked the stairs with his sword as he went down, advancing step by careful step. After they had gotten off the stairs, they found that the passage before them was dressed with tightly fitted stone, and the walls had also been reinforced with masonry. A door stood several meters ahead of them, and the surroundings were reinforced with steel plates. Brain did not think that an escape tunnel would be fitted with a trap more lethal than a crossbow, but he had heard of pitfall traps, which could take even heavily armored warriors out of the fight. Avoiding traps like those were an absolute top priority. While it was only a short distance, Brain still took his time and advanced cautiously. Eventually, they reached the door. Climb was waiting at the stairs, so as to avoid being caught up if something happened. Brain stabbed the door with his sword. After a few stabs, he made up his mind, grabbed the handle, and turned. Then he froze. As Climb began worrying something had happened to him, Brain turned back with a bitter expression on his face. He said, "It's locked." Obviously it was. Anyone would have expected that. Anything you can do about it? Otherwise I'll have to try and hack it down. Ah yes. One moment, please. Climb took out the last of the 3 bells and shook it at the door. A faint click came from the door as the bell of opening locks took effect. Brain tried the handle and cracked the door open just a little to observe the conditions within the room. It's empty. I'm going in. Climb followed behind Brain as the latter made his entry. It was a hall of some sort. The walls were lined with cages and crates that could take human beings within them. Perhaps this was a storeroom. Still, it seemed too large to be one. The doors opposite them were not locked. Climb leaned in to listen, and he could hear the sounds of a commotion in the distance. Brain looked back and asked Climb, "How's this place?" "It seems big enough to me, although it means you'll have to face a bunch of people at once. If they gang up on me, I'll open the exit and fight near the stairs." "Got it. I'll be checking around the surroundings and I'll return soon. Don't die on me, Climb." "Thank you very much. Please be careful, Brain-sama. Mind lending me those items from just now?" "Of course. Forgive me for not thinking of that earlier." Climb handed the 3 bells to Brain, who put them into his waist pouch. Then, a stern warrior's countenance came over him. With a curt, "I'm off," he passed through the unlocked door and headed into the depths of the brothel. This left Climb by himself. He looked around the silent room. He began by searching his surroundings, making sure nobody was hidden, and that there were no secret tunnels behind the crates. He was only a warrior, but he felt that there were no hidden doors or the like. Then, he inspected the crates proper. He was hoping to find some information on other 8 Fingers installations. If he managed to find contraband or smuggled goods, so much the better. Of course, an in-depth investigation would have to wait for after they had taken control of this place, but before that, he ought to search as best as he could. There were crates of all sizes, and he approached the largest one. It looked to be about 2 meters tall. He checked the large crate for traps. Naturally, Climb had not spontaneously developed any detection abilities since just now, so all he could do was clumsily imitate what proper thieves did for a living. He placed his ear to the crate and listened. He did not think the crate would contain anything, but this was a secret society's domain, so he might be able to find something. It might also contain an illegally smuggled life form or something. But as he had expected, there was no sound. Climb reached out and tried to open the top of the crate. It did not open, he could not even budge it. He looked around for a crowbar or a poker, but his quick scan of the area revealed no tools of the sort. "There's nothing I can do." After that, he tried to open a crate that was roughly a cubic meter in size. That one opened easily enough. He looked inside and saw clothes of many colors and varieties. There was everything from ponchos to dresses fit for noble women. "What are these? Is there something hidden under these clothes?" "Doesn't look like it. Spare clothes, maybe? Or are they something like work clothes? Maid uniforms, maybe? What on earth could they be used for?" Climb had no idea of those clothes' purpose. He picked a piece up and looked closely at it, but it looked to be just another ordinary garment. If he wanted to link it to a crime, then at best it might have been stolen, but it did not constitute enough evidence to shut down this brothel. He could not figure it out, so he decided not to bother. After that, Climb moved on to another crate of similar size. Just then, a loud thud echoed through the room. That was impossible. He had searched the entire room and made sure that nobody was there. Just then, an idea flashed through his mind. Could it be that someone had been hiding in the room all along, using the invisibility spell to conceal themselves? Shocked by his own conclusion, Climb hurriedly looked to the source of the sound. It had come from the 2-meter crate from earlier, the one that he could not open. One side of it was pressed up against the wall, and the boards opposite it had opened up. This exposed the interior. It did not contain anything except 2 men. There was a hole in the back of the crate, opening up to a tunnel where there should have been a solid wall. It would seem the secret passage was linked to the crate. A man emerged from the crate just as Climb was stunned with shock. Cold sweat poured down Climb's back. One of them looked just like the man Sabas had described. That man was called Succulent. He was the biggest obstacle to this takeover operation, and the biggest prize of them all. He was a member of 6 Arms, whose prowess was comparable to those of adamantite-ranked adventurers. In other words, he was an unbeatable foe for Climb. Succulent eased a blade out of its sheath as he looked at Climb, then narrowed his eyes and said, "We knew there were intruders from the alarm spell, and even took the secret passage to avoid meeting them. I guess we ought to make another one, huh?" "What point is there in saying that now?" the man behind him replied in a shrill voice. "Huh? Haven't I seen that boy somewhere before? Don't blame me for getting mad if you tell me you betted him before, at a time like this." "You're so mean, Succulent." "As if I would." "Ah, I remember. He's the minion of that damn slut, the one I hate more than anyone else in the whole world." "Oh, so he's the servant of that princess, then?" Succulent looked Climb over from head to toe. The man behind him had a revolting look of lust in his eyes, but Succulent seemed to be appraising Climb's strength as a warrior, much like how a serpent was sizing up its next meal to be swallowed whole. The man behind him licked his lips and asked, "I'd like to take that boy with me. Can you do it?" The hairs on Climb's back stood on end, and his anus itched. "So he's that kind of guy. That will cost extra." Succulent turned to face Climb, ignoring the latter's internal screaming. His stance exposed no weaknesses, and he seemed like an even more formidable obstacle to Climb now. Succulent suddenly stepped forward. The oncoming wave of pressure forced Climb to take one step back. When there was a massive disparity of strength between 2 opponents, their battle would not take long. However, Climb had to take on that arduous task. "If I remain on the defensive and focus on blocking attacks, I ought to be able to buy time until they return. But before that, he had to do one thing." Climb took a deep breath. "Someone help me!" He shouted with all his might, as though he were trying to dump out all the air in his lungs. There was no way he could win if he fought alone. Capturing these people and preventing their escape would count as a victory for him. Allowing someone as strong as this man, in other words, someone who might know a lot of important information, to escape would be a complete loss. That being the case, why should he hesitate in crying for aid? Indeed, Succulent's expression turned vicious at that moment. Now that Climb had done this, Succulent was in a race against the clock. In other words, he might end up pulling out all his trump cards early on. Climb continued to observe him, not daring to relax. Coco Dalsan. Capturing him might be a bit difficult. I have to finish him off before his friends arrive. How could that be? Aren't you a member of 6 Arms? Can't you beat a measly little brat like this? Doesn't that disgrace the name Illusion Devil? Now you've put me in a spot. All right, I'll do my best. But please remember that our win condition is that you escape, no? Climb remained on his guard and eyed Succulent, trying to find the reason why he was called the Illusion Devil. If he had chosen that name himself, it would probably not be too dissimilar from his actual abilities. That being the case, he could probably discern said abilities by finding the reason for the name. Unfortunately, he could not tell anything from his foe's appearance and his equipment. Climb knew the odds were stacked against him, but gave a valorous shout to steel himself. I will hold this door. You will not pass so long as I still draw breath. We'll see about that. Seeing you beaten to the ground in a disgraceful heap ought to be proof enough. Succulent slowly raised his sword and took a stance. Huh? Climb questioned what his eyes had just told him. That blade seemed to flicker. He was not seeing things. The flickering vanished quickly enough, but Climb was certain of what he had just witnessed. Is that a martial art of some kind? That was probably the source of the moniker Illusion Devil. His foe had most likely used some kind of ability. He ought to be wary and remain alert. Succulent stepped into range and swung his sword. That movement did not look like an attack from an adamantite-ranked warrior. In fact, it looked sloppier than one of Climb's own strikes. He raised his blade in preparation to intercept the strike. Then a chill not born of the air ran through him, and he hurriedly leaped aside. Pain suddenly blossomed on the other side of his body, and he was very nearly tossed away. Gworg. Climb stumbled back several steps and collided against the wall. He had no time to think about what had happened. Succulent was already in front of him. The blade swung like it had last time. Climb raised his sword to protect his head, and threw himself to the left to flee the blow. His right upper arm was racked with agony. Climb recovered into a standing position after rolling away, and thrust behind himself without thinking. His blade struck nothing but air. Now that he knew his foe was not going to pursue him, he looked back, clutching his right arm. He saw Succulent going for the door which led to the staircase, still mindful of Climb's movements.